Hi, my name is Steve Delaney. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at the Orange County Employees Retirement System. We're preparing for the 75th anniversary of OCERS, which is going to take place throughout 2020. Today, I'm really pleased to be able to meet with one of our longest-serving board trustees, Mr. Frank Ely. We're going to hear from Mr. Ely about what he's seen through the years working with OCERS. So Frank, why don't I just start from the beginning, get us how you got to Orange County, how you get on with the county as an employer, and from there we'll work on to how you actually become a member of the board.
Well, I worked for an engineering company in Long Beach, California, and I worked with this lady named Patty Burke, and her dad was the manager of permits at Orange County, and he would come in and visit us, and he'd say, "You guys are working way too hard for nothing," and he says, "You need to work for the county." And I thought at the time, oh my God, I'm not going to work for government. You know, I'm working in the private sector, right? And so he said all this stuff, and then in '82 there was a recession, and there were a lot of layoffs, and the county was actually hiring then. And so I put my application in, and 6 months later I actually got hired at the County of Orange. And I've never regretted it. They said, yeah. And so then that was always the plan, to work about 40 years, and then I'd be able to have all my entire salary and retire, like all these other people that I saw that were leaving at 61, 62 years of age.
So actually what our viewers should know is at this point you actually are retired.
Oh, yes. Yes,
So
I'm a retiree.
What happened with that 40-year plan, and how did things turn out there?
Well, the only thing that changed it was in about 2005 we had the 2.7 at 55, which was a higher costing but more generous plan, and so I was able to retire early. I only worked 34 years, but I retired at age 58, and boy, it's been absolutely magical, because your entire life, all employees, you know, you always are worried, right? If you're not working, you're not going to eat. And when you retire, there's like a whole month that goes by or more, and then you look in on like the 31st or the 30th or 31st of the month, and there's the money. And it's like one of the most incredible things that I've ever, experienced in my life. I'm very grateful, by the way. And so are all our retiree friends. They're very grateful on the first of the month.
Absolutely. You know, the OCERS board looks to you as sort of the Mr. Historian, because you've seen so much. So why don't you take us back to you've now learned about the system. How did you become interested in getting on the board?
So I was very involved in the union, OCEA, and I was even president during the bankruptcy. And at that time, I think the retirement system was maybe $2 billion in size. And that seemed like an infinite amount of money. But they're having some kind of questions, some of the board members and some of the real estate portfolio at that time. They said, oh my gosh, it's losing $1 million a month, because we had something like $150 million there. Anyway, I attended my first board meeting as a person in the audience at that time, and I was very interested. I was like, how do they make all this money? What do they do? And stuff like that. And so it was very, very exciting and kind of interesting to see how professional it was. It was a fully diversified portfolio and stuff like that, but I was so busy during the bankruptcy that I didn't have time to run for the board. At that time we had a very competent person, Sarah Ruckle Harms. She ran for 2 different terms. Anyway, a few times since then I went, and then in '98 the seat opened up, and I think there were 5 people that ran, including an incumbent at that time. And I decided to run, and I won, and at that time the system had already increased to $3.8 billion. So it was, that was like mind-blowing amount of money. As you know, about 2 years later, in 2000, we were considered fully funded. I think we were close to $4 billion. And, but that was under different assumptions, as we found out, and a different time and a different amount of people. So.
When you chose to run, you had
Mhm.
5 people running. What was that you were hoping to accomplish? Why did you want to be one of those candidates?
Well, I think the incumbent at that time was at loggerheads with OCEA and what the overall thing was. It seems like he was serving himself more than he was serving the people. So I wanted to get in there to sort of undo all of that. We had a very turbulent time under Mary Jean Hackwood, our former administrator, and it's interesting when the retirement system was so small, like when I started in '82, it was so small. It was a department of the treasurer's office, and Bob Citron oversaw everything, and most of the money was invested in his pool, if you can imagine. And by the time you got to 2000, it's a big, vibrant system with many money managers and stuff like that. And so, OCA wanted to make sure that this benefit, your highest benefit, sometimes even higher than your salary, was protected and going forward.
When you went to that first meeting to watch the board in action, you've now followed many meetings since, decades worth.
Sure.
Could you describe the difference between a board meeting then versus a board meeting today?
So, in those days, it was so quaint and quiet. Everything got done from, it started at noon, and it would be very odd if it went to, say, 4 o'clock or something like that. And that's all we had, was like the one meeting a month. We didn't have any separate meetings. We didn't have a separate investment committee. I think they had subcommittee meetings for private investment and public investment, but those only happened when they needed them, and it wasn't that often. So everything was so small. In fact, one of the big questions when I first got on the board was, why are we in international anything? We should get out of international equity. We shouldn't have any emerging market, of course. Those are all, third world countries. That's dangerous. There's plenty of return in America. And then, of course, the year after that, they had the big slump, which helped prove that you need to be diversified.
Talk to me about some of our stakeholder groups. Let's start with the employers. You've seen years of interaction between OSERs and the employers that participate in the plan. What have you seen? Have there been issues, challenges? How have we progressed as far as a board and staff dealing with employers that participate in this plan?
If you go back to the 70s, the county was everything. It was 99% of everything. I mean, there's virtually nothing else. And then all these small districts broke off, and like at that one time it was called the OCTA, Orange County Transit. Well, I guess Transit District, then it became the Orange County Transit Authority. So as all these have broken off, the county is still 80% of everything that we do here. But we have so many more plan sponsors, and we have so many more different levels. At one time we only had general and safety, so we had two formulas basically, and inside of each of those we had tier 1 and tier 2 members, so you had 4 plans, and that was it. It was very simple to administrate. And since then, my gosh, we're actually running out of letters in the alphabet. I mean, we're almost to Z now, but yeah, it's I think it's very interesting that the staff here say, our motto at OSERS, we have a formal motto, but the informal motto is, it's complicated. And man, that's the one thing, being on the board, is that you realize how complicated it is.
People who are watching this are going to be members, especially coming into our offices, getting ready to retire. How do you as a trustee and members of the board assure the members that their well-being and the positive outcome for them is indeed the sole purpose of your service here at OSERS?
Well, like I said, a long time ago, it was a very cozy thing, especially with Bob Citron running most of the retirement system. It was seen as almost a department of the county. Now you have all highly professional staff, and they are completely dedicated to maintaining the trust. And the trust is what pays us. And I got to say that they've done a great job as far as investments, as far as governance, as far as legal issues. Orange County was the first one to go ahead and implement the Ventura decision. That says a lot. Many things have been challenged over the years. The county itself challenged and saying that it needed to roll back the 3 at 50. The county lost on that. Osers prevailed. So I think there's two things that I hear often. Is one is, oh, it's a pyramid scheme. Okay, this is a pyramid scheme. Young people will say to me, Frank, yeah, you're happy because you're getting paid, but that money won't be there when I'm older like you. And I would say, well, you know, I've seen a lot of pyramid schemes on TV and in corporations and stuff like that, like Enron, but something that grows from 2 billion just in the time that I've seen it to 3.8 billion to like about 8 billion in 2008 to now 16 billion at present. That doesn't sound too much like a pyramid scheme. I mean, somebody's doing a lot of things right for it to grow like that. I mean, we have $1.6 billion in real estate alone. And so we have all these diversified investments all over the world that are doing such a great job. And it's really been like a pleasure to be on this board and see it grow like that.
So if we have an active member watching this, what words might you say to encourage an active member to reach out and become a member of the board in the future?
Well, I think it would certainly take the right kind of person, because you almost have to be, like, luckily when I ran, I was in the right place in my career. You have to be further along a little bit in your career because it takes a huge amount of time. Like we say on the board, it's not a half-time job, but it's more like not a quarter job. It's like about a third of your time. And that's true, even in retirement. It's taking like a third of my time to come. Currently, I'm on, you know, you have the regular board meeting, investment committee meeting, and then I'm also on the disability committee and the audit committee. So that's 4 meetings a month, and you have preparation and things for that. So yeah, it's a significant dedication and time. And I think you have to buy into the original idea of benevolent paternalism. When I first came, and I was 22, of course I was so much smarter than I am now, right? And I was like, well, who are these guys and why are they investing my money for me? Wouldn't I do better on my own? Well, I have learned the hard way because I've put my 457 money compared to OSERS, and many times I wish I had the OSERS return. In every downturn I was like, oh, I wish I had all my money with OSERS like that in the 457 plan. So I think it is that idea of benevolent paternalism. We know better, and we're going to go for the long investment, and we're going to go for the long run. Everything here, whatever happens, whatever crisis it was, whether it's the tech crisis or the housing boom crisis in 2008, those are actually the times that it seems like OSERS makes the most money, because we're still investing even when things are going down. And then when they come up, it's like, wow, we're already at 16 billion? Yeah, because we kept investing. And so I think that's the thing that I've been most impressed with about OSERS, is that its ability to invest so long run in investments that I can't access at all in any way in my 457 plan. So.
Mr. Lee, we're just continuing our discussion of disabilities, and especially what members could expect as they come before the board with their claim.
Well, certainly the board is as compassionate as it can be. It has to serve as judge and jury for the system. It can only look at what is actually been submitted to them in writing. And so certainly you can clear up a few things, but how much can you clear up in 3 to 5 minutes in front of the podium? So I would always suggest that everyone hire an attorney, because this is, you probably wouldn't buy a house without a realtor or anything like that. And this is much bigger than this because it goes on for the rest of your life. So some of the mistakes that we've seen is people who represent themselves as their own client, right? And so what do they say? The person who represents themselves as a fool for a client. That's what I see. Is that it's a very complicated kind of system, and you just need to work with the staff every bit of the way, and be very honest too. That's the most important thing. One of the things is very hard is that they have a situation where someone has a condition that existed before they came to the county, and they would have progressed in that area anyway. And those are the hardest ones, because someone may have already had, terrible arthritis. They could just barely do their job, and now the arthritis is so bad and they can't do their job. So those, often get denied service-connected disability because it would have progressed that way naturally. I understand that's hard for people to understand, but the retirement system basically is to replace people who have less ability with younger people who have more ability and vitality. And in some ways, I think long service itself even says in the 37 Act that, due to the effects of long service, those people will be replaced with other newer people without prejudice, which is very important, and without affecting the people being replaced. I think that's beautiful. I don't know how in 1937 people could have been that far forward looking. It's just amazing to me. But, I'm a beneficiary of it. I'm grateful every day. And also our retiree health insurance is in a trust with OSERS. So everything I have is with OSERS. It's amazing.
Very good.
Yes.
So Mr. Ely, let me ask about Mr. Ely in Orange County. Are you a native Orange Countian, or how did you arrive?
So I was born in Cadillac, Michigan, and my father was in the service. He was a A6 intruder pilot for the Marine Corps. So being in the Marine Corps, we had been many different places, like Corpus Christi, Texas, Cherry Point, North Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, Iwakuni, Japan. And we jumped back and forth, but we had been at El Toro more than once, El Toro Marine Base, when it was out here. And I always felt like that was home, because I had actually had the most years here. And so in 1972, when my dad was getting ready for his last place where he's going to be, he came back to El Toro, and we already had a house here that he had bought the first time we were here. And so from 72 on, I have been, so I feel like a native Californian. I don't really feel like a person from Michigan or the Midwest. But yeah, so we went a lot of different places, and that's how I came here.
And did the family keep the house they bought before 72 in Orange County?
Yeah, we bought it actually in 61. And
Wow.
it was $17,000, which was huge, $170 a month. And people really didn't understand what inflation was in those days, because in the beginning they could just barely make the house payment every month, and by the end they were renting it for like $300 a month, and so it was more than paying for itself. But yeah, we moved back to that same house, and then of course being in Orange County, we moved up in several houses, and then my dad went into real estate and he bought many houses, and so yeah, it's amazing.
Very good.
But yeah, I have lived in Tustin all this time, since 72, in different places all within a mile. And that's very convenient for me too, because I can come right to OSERS. I like OSERS being here. So.
Okay. Part of this, the reason we want to talk to Mr. Ely is we believe you are the longest serving member of the board.
I know I'm not.
You're not? Okay, tell us about
So when I first came on the board, or even the first time, I remember the voting in about 1986 or 88 or something like that, for this guy, Keith Kincannon, who worked he was a manager in the probation department. And then later he was running as retiree member, and people were talking about it. But of course, as a general member, you don't vote for him. So I actually voted for Keith Kincannon. He's the longest serving, I think at 36 years.
30 is incredible.
Yes,
Incredible.
yes, and believe me, I'm well aware that's too long. So, you know, I'm running again this year, but every year, you know, we're always trying to cultivate new people to come up.
And for our viewers, how many years have you completed as a member of the OSER's board at this point?
Well, from 99 to 2019, 20 years, right?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Which is something, when I go to Sackers, they say, how long have you been on the board? I go, oh, 20 years. They're like, oh, really? So that's something else. Usually it's appointed members in smaller counties who have been longer. Not too many, 20 years.
So as we reach ending of this recording, Mr. Ely, anything final notes for posterity's sake that you would want to share when someone's looking back at this? What should they know from our longest serving living trustee?
Yes, right now. So I got to say is that you may not know it, but this was your lucky day when you came to the County of Orange. Even the 1.62, 65 people, it is a great benefit, and it's so wonderful because if you look at the entire compensation in the private sector, you know, you have things like stock options and all that stuff. In government, you don't have anything like that. So one of the things I love about it is that everybody wins, and they all win their little prorated share according to their salary. So whether you're a Secretary 1 or you're, like a, information tech or an engineer or social worker, if you work here for 30 some years, you're going to be okay, and the system will be here, and the professionalism and the security of the system just keeps getting better. And so I'm very impressed with all of the professionalism of our staff and what a great job we do. We have great people in every single area, whether it's our assistant CEOs, internal, external, our attorneys that work so hard, all of our, and the IT place. I came from IT at OC Public Works. When I came here in like 99, there was only about, 6 IT people. You had some help desk people, you had a supervisor, and you had some programmers. And they were programming on the old Unix system. And now we're 2 different generations away from that system. So I think it's a great thing. Don't ever trade it for a 401k. That's my biggest fear, is that a lot of people will say, oh, we could get a raise, and now we'll go to 401k, and I can do better myself. You can't do better yourself. I assure you, you cannot do better yourself.
Mr. Lee, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Yes,
Thank you for sharing that history with us. It's important to us and to all of our members. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the check at the beginning of everything.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you all.